Hast du keine anderen Leute zum Anrufen, oder? Oh Mann, du, was trinkst du denn jetzt? Okay. So guys, I will hit now the record button. We will start the recording now. I hope that the guys that are listening to what I'm writing down will enjoy it. Also, if you have anything that you want that I maybe record or anything that you can suggest at the end, you can also whisper me that on Discord. And I'm trying to make a video out of that then too, okay? Like this well is bullshits, we take a normal well. Okay. So, here it is. Imagine someone talking shit about FSP and Dragon Banners, you reply to him and you get... Nox, stop it now, really. It's the last time I warn you. It's really the last time I warn you, dude. That's not the place. If you guys wanna battle, go out, whisper yourself, like, do whispers, whatever. Not in this chat, okay? It's done now. That's the last thing I say right now to you. Okay, so I'm hitting the record button now, guys, so hope you enjoyed. Let's go towards the recording. Good evening, everyone. It's Shariyama from TLS with another guide today. I'm trying to record a Necro guide today after the Firebrand guide came out. A lot of people liked it, so let's try to do that again. We will go with the overview. What is a Necro's job in World vs. World? What are your strengths and what are the weaknesses? Your skill bar, the weapons and variations, your traits, plus the variations of the traits you can go, your equipment, the consumables of your food that you should take, the stats variations, the rune variations, the skills, the sigils variations, the usage of all your skills, the complete toms that you can use, so from the shade 1 to shade 5, the weapon skills at the end, then your combos that you can use, what you are doing when you're stealth blasting as a Scourge, basically nothing, but I will already tell about that. And the rest about what you can do as maybe a Reaper or a Core Necro in a squad then, and how you get your gear. I will also make build links of the build from the build editor at the bottom of the video, like on YouTube already is. Okay, so let's get this started, I would say, guys. Let's just open the second window really quick and we can go. So, what is a Scourge for World vs. World? So, Scourge is an elite specialization from Necro. What is the job of a Scourge? The first place what you can do is you give barriers to your squad. Means you're supporting your party with barriers. These barriers, if right rated, can also help with Condi cleansing on your squad. Means with the barriers that you can give with 2 skills, you have one on the shade and one as your heal skill, you can give barriers to people on that moment. Your Firebrands don't need to heal. Means you help your people while engaging or disengaging, and we don't take that much damage. It's very important on that term, so it's something that you keep as a reminder. I will go later into that. The second point you have is corrupting boons. Since ANET gave us a lot of boons through different classes and we want to get them off, for example protection with 33% damage reduction, we want to get that off, and Scourge is a wonderful class for that. You have a lot of variations that you can use to strip boons, so that is your main job in the game, to strip boons and make the damage of the whole Zerg bigger on the enemy and make the enemy Zerg weaker for your people. The third thing is AoE and range control. You have a lot of skills that are being on 600, 900 or even 1200 range. With these skills you can control the enemies because all of them are basically AoE skills. You can control the enemy Zerg very well. So basically you can help the commander on range pressure, on pulls, on controlling enemy movement and on range spikes a lot with it. Furthermore, you can help your Zerg also with some healing at the end if you really want to help them, and you keep the might up if you traded it right. So every time you give barriers, you also give might. That is basically the overview of what your jobs are in a squad, in a party. The Necro should not be played as a roaming character, I can say you already. Like these builds that I show you here right now are not roaming builds. These builds are made to play with either close guild groups, GVG groups, but GVG I would say it's a bit special, so they always have different builds. I will just give you like basic builds. And like groups that are being bigger at the end, like 50 plus groups and whatever. Scourge is one of the best choices. Reaper was a choice for a while. I wouldn't say Reaper is a good choice. If you're being in a guild and your people are pushing a lot and you go a lot into the enemy melee train, Reaper can work, but Scourge is just offering way too much for your Zerg that the other let's say, specializations are not offering. So I would recommend playing Scourge for it. Also, you can get a shit ton of loot, you can get a shit ton of tags on the enemy Zerg, and you will get a lot of ranks through that too. So it's really good for beginners to play with a Scourge also, because you tag so much that you get basically the maximum amount of everything out of it. So let's go over the skill bar. So we have as a weapon, I'm here at the moment with me, I have 4 weapons. I'm playing with a scepter, with a dagger, with an axe and a focus. So we're playing here with 4 weapons. It's also possible that you are playing with 3 weapons. So if you want, you can also take a staff, for example. A staff is something, you can take it, it's a 1200 range control tool. In my opinion, it's not worth it, since you want to have more boon strips, and so 4 weapons is way more reliable on that moment in a Zerg fight. I would always go for the 4 weapon Scourge. If you're a beginner and you struggle a lot with going into closer range because you're getting caught and you're being off tag or you're being too slow, just go for the stuff and for 2 other weapons at the end, and you will be more than fine. Also, a lot of people are taking sometimes a torch over a focus or a dagger. You can do that to give a bit more damage, because a torch is giving you cleave damage. At the end, I would not do it. I would go for a maximum strip, like I have for here, for example. I will give you today my build. My build is focused on completely stripping enemy Zergs and then focusing on damage, but there is different variations we will go through. So basically, you can have a scepter and a dagger and a torch and an axe and a torch. You can also go for a scepter, dagger, focus, or you can go for a torch then here at the end. As you see, let's go towards weapons really quick. You can also use a dagger as a main hand. I would not recommend it, to be honest, if I would be you. And the Warhorn is also something. It's a daze for 5 targets. Like, if you're playing support Scourge, you can go for it, but there is just other off weapons that are being way too strong. So I would not go for that. So the next thing we are going to is the power traits. So I have different kind of traits that I will show towards you. This is at the moment the setup that I'm running on my Scourge. After several weeks, I decided to go for that. I'm running for Soulreaping. I'm going Soulreaping, Unyield Blast. Every time I put a shade down, I'm playing with mini shades. So every time I place a shade down, I place down vulnerability. We are playing power. That means every damage we are increasing by 2% every time we're placing it down, because we are inflicting vulnerability. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty good buff. At the end, we don't need soul marks because I don't need the stuff, and we don't need the speed of shadows. Entering Shroud and Swiftness removes impairing conditions. You can take this as a defensive trait. I don't think it's worth it. So on the second line, depending if you're being more experienced or less experienced, you can go for Soul Barbs. Soul Barbs, every time you're entering or exiting Shroud, you're getting 10% more damage. That means at the end you have 20% more damage for 10 seconds. 10% more damage for 20 seconds around this. Or you're going for Vital Persistence. You get 10% more healing and 180 vitality. You can also go for that if your damage is high enough and you need more survivability, or your group is bad. You can also go for that, so you just survive a bit more. But the highest recommendation is Soul Barbs for just more damage on you. Then we have Death Perception. I take it because I'm taking less precision on my gear. My crit chance is lower on that term, and every time I go into my I go for 33% more crit chance than basically with it. So my precision is getting higher. Also, the crit damage with the ferocity on this passive trait is getting pretty high. So it's something that you should go for. The Doomfire is just burning infliction through a Shroud 1. You don't need that on a Power Scourge. And also the Eternal Life, you don't need that. It's a defensive trait. Then we go over to Curses. Curses is something I would always take, because we have the few wait a second, that's wrong. That's a wrong trait here. Here it is. Okay. Path of Corruption. So basically, every time we put the F2 skill down, we are corrupting a boon. I would never sacrifice Curses. Curses is giving you just way too much. You can either take, when you play Condi, you can go for Indus Disruption to give Torment. If you go Power, you can go for Plug Sending to condition transfer away. So every time you go into your into your Shroud, you go for 2 conditions away from you. It's a defensive option. I like this option way more. Or you're going for Chilling Darkness. Blinding a target will also apply chill. So every time you blind someone, that means when you're corrupting a boon and that gets blind, you also put chill on those targets. Can be pretty effective if you have enough Condi cleanse in your party. You can definitely go for Chilling Darkness. On the second line, I would always go for Path of Corruption. You need the boon conversion, so it's very important to have the F2 boon conversion here. And we are taking Devouring Darkness to buff our Scepter 3 to a new skill, to make the skill stronger, and getting a lot of buffs on it then, because a Lynching Curse. Then we are going to Scourge. Scourge has now different options too. A lot of people are saying this is better, that is better. You have to think about what you want to do at the end. I decided to go for Abrasive Grid. Grant an ally a barrier, removes condition, afflicting them, and grant might. So every time I give them barrier, that means every time I press F3 or 6, that means my heal skill or my barrier on my shades, I'm going to give them might and I'm going to remove conditions. That means every time I press F3, 5 conditions away and 5 people with might. At the end, normally they have might, but I like to help the people with condition clear. So that's very important in my opinion. A lot of other people go for, here in the bottom for Nourish Ashes, gain life force when you inflict burning and remove or corrupt a boon. So every time you're corrupting a boon, on the power gear or you inflict burning with it, you can go and give more life force into you if you have life force problems. But normally you never have life force problems, to be honest. Really, like, you don't have it, so you should never have it, but you can go for that if you want. If you play Condi, also Fell Beacon is something. Torch skills have reduced the recharge, so if you play with Condi gear, you should go for that trade, but I don't recommend to play Condi anymore. Then you go for Sadistic Searing. Punishment skills reduce recharge and cause your next Manifest Sunshade to inflict burning on foes near. That's basically a trade you take because the other two trades are garbage. Desert Empowerment Manifest Sunshade grants a barrier to allies near it. You want to set them offensive and not defensive, so basically you don't need that barrier. And the Harbinger Shroud is just a very delayed Shade Shroud. You will never go for that because it's just way too long until it explodes, so it will never be an option in a Zerg fight. So that's the only option you can go, since they nerfed our Harbinger, like they replaced Harbinger with the old thing. So our F5 is sadly not corrupting anymore. So on the last turn, there is now several options you can take. If you play Condi, you go for Demonic Lore. Demonic Lore, Torment you inflict deals increased damage and cause your foes to burn. So every time you give Torment, you also burn them. Burning is at the moment pretty OP. You can go for that, definitely. If you play with Condi gear or Condi heavy gear. Then we have the Sun 7. For beginners, I would recommend it because you just place one shade down and you can hit 5 people. It has a long cooldown and the range is not that impressive anymore. I would not recommend it anymore. I would not play it. But some people like to play it. It's also easier to play because 3 shades are harder to handle than 1 shade. So I would say it's the second best option. And the best option is Feed from Corruption. When you remove or corrupt a boon from an enemy, you gain that boon. So everything what you're corrupting on enemy zergs, you just give to yourself. And like I said, I'm playing a build with maximum strips. That means all those strips I'm putting in, I'm getting as my boons. That means even when my guardian or my party is bad, I can strip defensive boons on the enemy zerg and give them to me, and so I can be full of boons permanently all the fights. So that is something you should go for and you should learn. Placing down the 3 shades or shades after a while is something you will learn. It's a bit risky at the beginning because you get slower, because you need to walk and place shades all the time and press all the other skills too. But you will get into it, and the stronger you're getting because you will hit more targets then. Because the Send 7 is reaching you 5 targets. So every shade can hit 5 targets. If you play with mini shades and you place more than one shade, you can hit up to 15 targets. So you can either place 1 defensive and 2 offensive, so you hit 10 targets on range with damage and 1 for barriers on yourself and all your party. Because it got nerfed, right? So you just deal either damage around yourself, or you place the damage on the shade, but you don't do it on both places anymore. Means for you, you have to decide, do you want to play defensive and help your people with barriers, or do you want to be aggressive and bomb? And the mini shades give you the option to place a shade on yourself and place a shade offensive, and so you boon your people while you're attacking, for example. So I would always go for this trade, it's just too strong. Then we have, I just, here stands healing, just ignore that, guys. This is like the second trade line I can take. You can take over Soulreaping, you can take Spite. With Spite, you're taking Spiteful's Talisman. Deal increased damage to foes with no boons. Focus and X skills recharge faster. So your X and your Focus are recharging faster. We have a Focus and an X here. That means that skills come faster up. That means more damage for us. Pretty cool. You can go for Chill of Death. Cast a lesser spinal shivers on foe when attacking them, with their health is below the threshold. So every time you attack an opponent that is under 50% life, you're attacking them with the lesser spinal shivers and you're stripping some boons on them all the time off. That's pretty good on that term. So every time you're hitting an opponent under 50%, extra strips for you. Some people also take the threat. Inflicting fear on a foe applies vulnerability. Some people take that. I would not take it, guys. And then we have the last thing. The signating is garbage. Close to death, increase the damage to enemies below the threshold by 20%. You can go for that if you focus on damage. I would not go for it. I would go for Spiteful Spirit, because Spiteful Spirit is corrupting boons at the end. So gain retaliation for each foe you strike, converts additional boons on foes below the threshold. So basically, you're getting retaliation for everyone you're hitting, plus you're converting boons, and you give cripple. So that is the second option you can go to. So you go either for Spite, Curse, and Scourge, or you go for Soulreaping, Curses, and Scourge. Also, I will show it here. If you go for stuff, when you play with stuff, let's go for Soulreaping, and then we take it. So if you play with stuff, you want to run Soul Marks. Soul Marks is something that your marks get unblockable. Very important on that term. Soul Bobs or Vital Persistence, like we talked already, and you go for Death Perception. So just this trait here is changing, right? Just that you guys know. Let's take this back again. Okay, let's talk about the Condi. Like I said to you guys already, I'm playing Condi with Curses, Soulreaping, and with Scourge. I'm playing India's Disruption, I'm playing with Path of Corruption, and I'm playing with Lingering Curse. We already spoke about that. We are taking Soulreaping with Speed of Shadows here. I took it over the other two traits because they are garbage for me, because I don't have a stuff in my hand. And I take Doomfire here because I want that I get burning all the time. And like I said already, faster recharge on your torch skills, the burning and the burning. So this Condi build is completely on burning at the end. I will show that to you later. I have geared it, so I will show it to you then. Okay. So the next thing is the equipment. Let's go over the equipment really quick. I will open just a guide on the next page really quick for you guys. So let's change that really quick into this one here. So guys, here we have it. We have a guide here that I made on the Guild Wars 2 editor. It is with a scepter, it's with a dagger, it's with an axe and a focus. As you see here, dagger, axe, and dagger, axe, focus, and scepter, dagger, axe, and focus. Okay, I was like totally weird. Sorry, guys. We have the traits that we talked about here completely for the power Scourge. So now we go for the gear. What I made here for the gear is, this is basically the beginner version of the gear, right? So I took Berserker weapons with absorption sigils and energy sigils. Energy sigils, every time I swap the weapon, I get a dodge back. Absorption sigils, every time I swap to this weapon and I'm interrupting a foe, I steal 3 wounds. So every time I fear them, or whatever I do to them, they get knocked back or whatever, or with the condis that they take, they get interrupted on their skills. I steal 3 additional wounds. Means every time with either that or that weapon set, 3 more boons that get stolen at the end. So 3 more boons that I can give for myself with defeat from corruption. I decided to take a complete Marauder set with also Marauder backpack for you guys at the beginning, because I want to have a bit of a higher crit chance without being in full Berserker. And what I took for you guys at the beginning is I took 3 Cavalier and 2 Valkyrie stats. So the Valkyrie stats are giving me a bit of vitality, but still a lot of power and more ferocity. And the Cavalier stats give me toughness. So I went up to 2376 toughness. The more experience you're getting as a Scourge, the less Cavalier, Valkyrie or Marauder stats you need to take. You can end up on a Scourge with full Berserker at the end. So it's all dependent on you. How much life do you want to have? How much toughness do you want to have? How much survivability do you need? And how much, how good are you in moving? And how good are you in staying on tag and being alive? Because at the end, don't deal damage means also you're dead all the time and you're useless. What I heard and what I found out is around 22,000 HP and 2,400 toughness you don't lose that much damage. You have 2000, you still have 2351 without might and buff food as direct damage. You still have 1065 ferocity, that's also pretty good, and you have still enough crit chance, especially with the death perception at the end, to go for 33% or crit chance to crit all the time. So, and we are playing it with the Scholar rune. That's something you go for ferocity and power. I like to go for my power on this build, but at the end you can also go for a different rune. We will go over that in a second then. So don't take this build as a complete guide to take it off, because you can change it dependent what you want to do and how good you are on your Scourge and how you want to execute it at the end. So you can start as a beginner with this version of the build. You can also, like, I will give you more examples of sigils also. And at the end, you can change a lot of the stats that have tankiness inside into more stats that are being more glassy, so you get more damage out of it, so you're more glassy at the end also. That means you have to play more intelligent or you need a better party. At the end, most parties have 3 supports nowadays, so you can play more glassy at the end. I still recommend for people that are not being that good on Scourge or newer on Scourge to go for some Cavalier stats in the gear, because the toughness is helping you to survive a bit more and you don't sacrifice too much damage at the end. If you just put a full Berserker gear inside here, you will see not that much difference in ferocity and crit chance between these builds, so just test it out at the end. Okay, let's go really quick over the sigils and the runes that I want to show you. So I have at the moment the Scholar rune inside here, like I showed you. The Scholar rune with the ferocity, power, and 5% more damage over 90% HP. So you have different options now that you can take. You can go for a Scrapper rune. The Scrapper rune is the damage reduced by 7% within 600 units of an enemy. It's a very defensive rune you can take as a Scourge. As a beginner, I would recommend it. It is power and toughness, and it's the reducing damage. Means also when you take this rune, you can go for more offensive gear, because all the damage you're taking is getting already reduced by 7% if you're being inside the enemies. You can go for the Eagle rune. The Eagle rune is like the Scholar rune, I would say the best option at the moment. It's giving you precision and ferocity. That means more crit chance and more crit damage. And damage targets with less than 50% health for 10% more. So every time an enemy is on 50% health, you deal already 10% more damage. Also pretty good. You need to look if you can play with that rune. Then there is the Strength rune. It gives power and might, plus increasing the damage by 5% while under the effect of might. You're basically always under the effect of might, means you're always dealing more damage. Something you can think of if you have enough ferocity, enough precision on other sources, you can go also for that rune if you want it at the end, or you cannot afford the Scholar rune or you don't want to play with the Eagle rune. It's also an option. And if you play a hybrid build, like for example Celestial, you can, like with Celestial stats or Grieving stats, you can go for Condi and power and 5% more damage and 5% more Condi damage. The Berserker rune is still a good option if you play with a hybrid build. So hybrid build, here we have one for example that I can show you. That's hybrid stats, power, precision, ferocity and Condi damage. That's Grieving stats. If you take them with Celestial stats together, like here of my weapon, Celestial stats that have power, precision, toughness, vitality, ferocity, healing power, and Condi damage, you can go and play with the Berserker rune. It fits the best on that kind of build, and you will have a lot of support for your straight damage and the Condi damage on top of it. I took a few sigils that I want to say to you that could be pretty good. It's up to you what you want to take. If you want to take more damage, you can go for a Force sigil. It's 5% more straight damage on all your skills. That's pretty good, right? Then we have the Sigil of the Strength. Gain might for 10 seconds upon critically striking a foe. You can take it. I would not recommend it. Some people taking it, I heard from it. I don't like that sigil at all. Then you can go for Severance. I really like Severance, especially when you go for a Condi build, or when you go for a, not for a Condi, sorry, for a hybrid build. Because upon interrupting an enemy, gain 250 precision and ferocity for 4 seconds. So you're always getting more precision and more ferocity. So basically, when you run with this sigil is when you just kill and interrupt enemies all the time. This sigil is like a stacking sigil, right? So stacking stuff like precision, ferocity, or power is giving you 250 at the end, and you just get that for 4 seconds upon interrupting. Then you can go for a Vision Sigil. Critically strike an enemy for 3 seconds after swapping to this weapon. You can take this, for example, on an X. If you swap to your X in combat, you can take the Vision Sigil. When you take the Vision Sigil on that point, all your 3 attacks of your X are critting. That means you can do 3 attacks that brutally hit with a lot of crit chance. So you will hit 100% with that skills. Pretty cool. You can take it. You don't need to take it. You can also go for the Bloodlust Sigil on your off-weapon set, just to stack more power on your gear. You can go also for a Frenzy Sigil. I've used it earlier a lot. Lately I've not used it. Recharged all your equipment by skills for 2 seconds upon killing an enemy. So every time you kill someone with a 10 seconds cooldown on the Frenzy Sigil, 2 seconds of your skills get reduced. I would not take it at the moment with the cooldown of 10 seconds. It's too high in my opinion. You can also run with the Sigil of Air, unleashing a lightning strike upon critically hitting a foe. So every time you're hitting an enemy, you're also releasing a completely lightning strike. Pretty cool to do some AoE damage. You can decide if you really need that on a Scourge. I would not play with it. And you have the Absorption Sigil. You can play with the Absorption Sigil at the end too. What I forgot, and it seems like it didn't work with the buy. I will just look it up really quick. Here we have it already. The Rune of the Vampirism. Something that I can say is pretty strong for beginners. Power, vitality, and 10% maximum health, plus restore 10% of your health upon killing an enemy. If you're playing in a Zerg that kills a lot of enemies, you can basically be in full life all the time, because every time an opponent dies, you get 10% of your HP back. Something you can go for, especially when you go for a pretty glassy build that you being full life all the time. I would say it is a good rune, but you're sacrificing a lot of your damage with it. So you have to think about what you want to do with it. And then we have one more rune that is pretty interesting you can go for. It's called Rune of the Ogre. It's power, ferocity, and it has 4% more damage. Summon a rock dog while in combat. Well, this rock dog, whatever. You have 4% more damage. You have power and ferocity on this rune, so it's basically it is a good option if you cannot afford the Scholar rune at the end. The Scholar rune is stronger. So if you look, the Ogre rune gives you 4% more damage, and the Scholar rune gives you at the end 5% more damage when you're upon 90% life, but you get on the other rune, you get 4% all the time, even you take a lot of damage, and you get the same power and same ferocity. So it's a rune that you can definitely think of taking for your gear. It's definitely a rune you should think of. As you look, you gain 4% permanent damage, 100 power and ferocity, so basically it's around the same than the Scholar rune. You just lose 1% damage, but since you always get damage in fights, like how much of the time are you over 90% HP to get this bonus? So you have to think about, maybe that's an option for yourself. If you drop a lot of HP, then you're going for this rune. Is an option you take too. Okay, and here I have one more with toughness, ferocity, and power. Like this is an option that you can go for, that you have toughness on your gear, like I said, Cavalier stats. And there you have power, vitality, and ferocity. That's the Valkyrie stats at the end. So you can go for, you're sacrificing precision for a bit of vitality and a bit of toughness on your gear to make yourself tankier. Okay, let's go towards the next spot. I think we wasted already a lot of time on the equipment right now. Let's go over to the Consumables. I have a very cheap version at the moment, because normally I take the Ascended buff food. You can go for the Dragon Breath Buns, for example, 200 power for 30 seconds on kill, plus 70 ferocity all the time. I'm using that permanently. If I'm being in a Zerg that has basically problems with healing, we have the Delicious Rice Balls still. I have them still here for 100 healing and 10% more outgoing healing. So my barriers are bigger and I just get a bit more barriers at the end. And well, you're taking Sharpening Stones. I have a cheap Sharpening Stone here at the moment. You can also take more expensive ones, depending whatever you want, right? That is something you can choose. So we went over the stats now, over the runes, we went over the sigils, and now we are going over the skills itself. We are starting with our weapon skills. So our scepter is with 1/1/1, is very annoying. We can inflict bleeding and poison with every third hit. If you're inflicting bleeding with every third hit, means you just want to 1/1/1 all the time. Even the scepter 1/1/1s are not that strong. Poison, 50% less healing on an enemy player, means that has to get cleansed, means that is pretty good for us, so keep that doing. Your scepter field 2 is a 900 range field that is crippling and bleeding. You can use it as a filler basically with 10 seconds cooldowns. It's not that big, and it's stopping the enemy from moving forward normally, because you can cripple them. That has to get cleansed and they slow down for a moment. You keep them in combat. One of the most amazing skills on that build, and you have to use that permanently off cooldown, is your Scepter 3. It is like a cone, as you have seen in front of us. With this cone you're corrupting boons. So you're corrupting 1 boon per 5 targets with this skill for 10 seconds cooldown, so you have to go for that. Please always use this skill off cooldown on the enemy Zerg when you have it. Then you can use as a filler the Deathly Swarm. It's like when you use, for example, the trait we talked about. We talked about the trait here, chilling darkness. You also chill when you blind. With this skill, your blinding means you're also chilling with that skill. You can use it as a filler. That's 80 seconds cooldown. And then we have the Dagger 5. It's a very slow skill that goes down, corrupting boons, bleeding, and weakness. Also pretty important that you land that skill with a huge cooldown, so please place it correctly on the enemy movement, that your enemies will get the corrupts on top of it, plus the weakness and the bleeding. And then you have normally a Scepter 3 ready again, you can use it again. Normally in combat, when the combat gets closer, then we're swapping weapons. With the X1, we are inflicting vulnerability. And for every stack of vulnerability we're having, our X2 is dealing more damage. So bonus damage per vulnerability stack 1%. Then we have our X3, that is our corrupting. We are corrupting basically. Care about this skill has 600 range and then the explosion 180 range. So you need to care that you're getting a bit closer with that skill. Your fourth skill is just something you can inflict vulnerability. It's a filler skill, like I said, the same as X2. It's a filler skill at X1. And then you have your Focus 5. The Focus 5 is pretty amazing. The more boons the opponent have, the more boons you remove and the more damage you're doing. So you can remove 3 boons for a maximum damage. I've already one-shotted several enemy players. For example, LAs with this skill with like 8k instantly. So you, for example, one of the combinations is you just X1, 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 X1. Then you go for your Focus 5 and then X2 behind it. And normally you can one-shot people with that. It's pretty amazing in Zergs. And also the Focus 5 has 1200 range, what is amazing, right? So, and always keep your weapon skills up, never forget them, keep swapping your weapons, keep using your weapon skills on the enemy with 900 range, it's pretty cool. I will not equip the stuff right now, I think every one of you knows the stuff with stuff 2 Blood Mark, stuff 3 Chill Mark, stuff 4 getting the conditions away from you, and stuff 5 as a Fear Mark. I don't think we need to talk about that at the end. Okay, let's stop attacking really quick. So now we go over the utilities. The heal skill, your heal skill, Sand Flare. The first thing it does, it heals yourself and giving you barrier. Second thing it does, it gives barrier to your party. Third thing it does, it is converting boons of the enemy Zerg. So when I go now into this area here, and I use my heal skill, I would corrupt those guys' boons if I use my heal skill inside of them. So it has different kind of usages. Either you're using it at the beginning of a fight on a huge engage because the enemy commander is pushing deep or you're pushing deep and the commander is calling for big barriers. So you have to press your big barriers on yourself, not only the small ones, the heal skill then too. Even your HP is high. Use that heal skill for barriers to make the life of your supports easier, please. So commander calls for big barriers. You press both barriers. 7k barrier on everyone means that your commander and everyone in your party has it easier, and the guardian has it easier to support at the beginning and can focus on boons at the beginning of a fight. It can help a lot. Keeping the barriers up on squad is one of the main goals as a Scourge. Then the second and the third skill are Well of Suffering and Well of Corruption. You're playing with Well of Suffering because you play power. That means every time you inflict vulnerability, you deal more damage. What's important on these two skills is you should never waste them on a first spike. You should never waste them random. You should never waste them when your commander says he's calling a well bomb. Never waste them on anything. These skills are pulsing 6 times. Means you have to hit them. If you just hit them with 1 pulse, the skills are wasted. They can deal a lot of damage with the 6 pulses plus corrupting boons and inflicting vulnerability. So you want to combine them with, for example, Gravity Wells, Warrior Bubbles, Dazes, Immobilization Bombs, Pulse and whatever. You want to combine that with other skills that you hit them for 100% because you want to hit as many pulses of them as you can on the enemy Zerg that they are getting all the damage done on them. Same for the Well of Corruption. Every pulse is corrupting. So you want to hit as many pulses as you can on people that you're corrupting the most boons out of the enemy Zerg. Then we have the Trail of Anguish. Trail of Anguish is something you gain swiftness, you gain stability for people and yourself, and you give a condis on your opponent's Zerg and you're corrupting. So basically, let's say we're getting stunned here right now, you're stun breaking yourself and you're running. That means everyone behind you gets corrupted, gets burning, and every one of your friendly players behind you gets stability. So basically you can help your Zerg while pushing on that point too. You just need to know this skill is a stun break for yourself. So never use it before you really need it at the end. Because it's the only stun break you have. Otherwise you are very vulnerable to everything. Just use that skill if you need it. Never use it at the beginning of a fight. Never use it at the end of a fight. Never use it to catch up with the commander because you were on toilet and you need to get back on tech. So just use this skill as a stun break for yourself inside of the enemy Zerg to help with stability, corrupting boons, and giving condies. And your last skill, my favorite skill, the Breach. Breach is a wonderful skill, corrupting boons, dealing massive amount of damage, has also 5 pulses, so you also want to hit that skill 100%, at least with 2 or 3 pulses, never waste that skill. Always try to, when you are pushing or the enemy Zerg is pushing, that you are getting that done on the enemy Zerg or on you. So you want to hit as many pulses of them as you see. So basically you saw already 3 skills now that are giving pulsing skills. Means you need to hit them, and you have your F5, Desert Shroud. Also 7 times pulsing. You want to hit those skills. Then we have the F1. With the F1, you're just putting your shade down. That means all your damage skills get casted there. So let's just use our barrier there really quick. See, we're putting our barrier down. But what we can do right now, that is something that I wanted to explain you before. So let's wait the barrier really quick. We're putting a shade on us. Then we put a shade down forward. And now we're pressing F3. So now I give barrier to myself while I'm also attacking the enemy Zerg. Means you can do that double time. That means I can put one shade on me, one shade forward. I can put even another shade forward. Now press the damage skill. So I'm burying my people on myself while I'm damaging 10 targets in front. That's pretty amazing at the end, right? So, and if you don't need the defensive option, you can also go for 3 mini shades in front and you hit a lot of more targets. Like if you look, I can go for that now. I'm pressing 3 mini shades now. Pressing all 3 shades. And now I'm pressing my skills. You see that? Big numbers. That was triple numbers on everyone. So they got hit by all 3 at the same time. So that was basically, instead of 3 target damage, was 9 target damage already. So you should always look that you're doing that. Also, the cooldown and the repositioning is way easier. Okay, now I just need my... Now I need to go for some life force really quick, that I get my life force back. Let's get the life force really quick. Okay, so now we have our F4. The F4 is our fear. The F3 is our barrier. The F2 is our corruption. And the F5 is our pulsing big barrier for ourselves, plus fury, plus not corrupting boons anymore. Think about that, please. No Harbinger Shroud, guys. No corrupted boons with F5 anymore. But still, if you look, I'm placing my F5 now on myself. I'm pulsing damage on them, and I can press down my F1 now several times. And all the F1s are, see them ticking all down on the opponents right now. Something that is very useful. It's one of the main damages of your skills, so always try to reposition it. What a lot of people don't know is, if I press my F5 now, like I press my F1 and press my F5 now on that, my F5 is now pulsing here and the enemy Zerg is moving here to the right side. I can reposition my F1 and my F1 keeps pulsing here with the F5 on it. Means that the damage is keeping going here. So if you look, the F5 is now pulsing, and I put another shade down. The F5 is also pulsing here now. So I can pulse on all 3 at the same time on different positions. You can reposition that. Also with the big shade, you can reposition it. So always try to keep to reposition that you hit as many targets as you can with those skills, please, okay? Something that is very important in my opinion. Let's go for some life force again really quick, that I can give myself again life force, and then we will go over some combinations in a squad that you can do. Basically as a last point then already. I just want some life force. Okay, we have life force now. So we are stacking here. Commander calls for stealth down or for some range pressure. We're going forward. He calls for a small spike in front. So you always want to start with scepter and dagger because you have 900 range. The X has not enough range. You can start with the X because you can use your focus, but I prefer starting with the scepter to use scepter 3 and dagger 5 because it's 2 AoE skills instead of a 1 single target skill. So enemy is empowered. We are empowering here. We are going forward for a small range back in 3, 2, 1. We're going forward. Small barrier up right now. Putting the small barrier. We're going into the 900 range. Scepter 2, Scepter 3, small shade 2, 3, 4. And that's it basically. You don't waste your F5 on the first spike. That's enough already. So you used 3 to 4 skills on that point. You use your barrier before engage already, and then you disengage it already. The commander calls for a deep push right now. When we go forward for a deep push and calls for a small spike, we just use the Scepter 3, Dagger 5, swapping weapons, using X5, dropping our shade down at the same time. The commander calls for dodge off. We are using our heal skill to help the people in barriering and pulling back again. Also a combination. So you see, I'm always using my X3, Dagger 5 and my Scepter 3 all the time to give more boon corrupts out on the enemy Zerg. Also, I'm never using my F5 on a small spike. I'm never using my wells on a small spike. So if a commander calls for a small spike, F1, F2, F3, F4. That's it. That's it completely. Also the F4 you can save. You just need F1, F2, F3 at the end, to be honest. You don't really need to waste those high skills and that kind of options at the beginning. Please don't. So now take a different thing. The commander says, warrior bubble go, warrior bubble go, warrior bubble go. We're taking the warrior bubble on the opponent's circ and now gravity veil on it, and now he calls for well bomb. You're dropping both your wells, your shade and your F5 on the opponent's circ. You're dropping all that. You're using your weapon skills, and commander calls for dodge in. And then you go for your breach on the opponent's circ, and you're inside your opponent's circ. You can use also your heal skill. You use your X3 again. You can dodge off, use your shade again, drop the shades again, swap weapon again, use your scepter 3 again, use your dagger 5 again. Keep the skill spamming. See, shade is ready again, use the shade again. Commander called for disengage. We're going back to the commander tag. At that moment you saw, like, you can keep spamming those stuff. It is all dependent what your commander wants. What I say, what is recommended on a small spike. Small spike is scepter 2, scepter 3, swap weapon, focus 5, F1, F2, F3, and maybe heal skill at the end. That's a small spike for me. If I call for a big spike, you can go for your F5 if you really want to. You can also drop those weapon skills again, and you can drop your wells as soon as you're sure you will hit them at least with 4 to 5 pulses. It's very important that you hit those skills. You can lose a lot of damage by not hitting them at the end, guys. So try to hit this bullshit. The wells and the F5 are very important on that stuff. And keep using your weapon skills, because using these weapon skills, as you remember, freed from corruption, giving you all the boons that you're corrupting to yourself, means it makes you even stronger at the end, right? So that is something you can go for. So you have to think of. I'm always starting with it. Scepter 2, Scepter 3, then Dagger 5, using my F1, dodging off then with the enemy circ. Normally we're pushing out to the side. Commander calls for now Shade Bomb, Shade Bomb, Shade Bomb. Dropping my F5, dropping the another F1 to deal double damage. Scepter 3 again, and X3 again. Commander says dodge left, dodge left, dodge left. We're going left, and now breaches. Trail of Anguish to get a 100 breach. Dropping my breach. Now Graph Wells, and you're dropping the Graph Wells and the wells on them, for example. And dropping your shades again, so that you're getting your stuff done. The Trail of Anguish here can help you to not get interrupted while dropping your breach, for example. That is now something that I can call. Sometimes the commander doesn't know exactly what you should do as a Scourge, so just listen to yourself on that point, that you completely do your stuff about yourself. When you know you can hit your breach, you do that, even when the commander is not calling it. When you know you will hit your wells 100%, you're hitting them, even when the commander is not calling for it. All that kind of stuff. And as the last point, what I want to go through is the positioning of a Scourge. You always want to be on tag, you always want to play aggressive. You don't really want to go off tag. If it really happens that you, let's say the commander is pushing and you cannot follow it straight up because you have to dodge through a bomb, never do it. Search your own way as a damage dealer. Start thinking. Don't only listen what the commander is saying at the end. Also think about what can you do as yourself to support the commander and how are the enemies moving. Start thinking and seeing how the enemies are moving. As a damage dealer and also for stripping boons, you have to be very, very reactive and active in doing your stuff without any calls from anyone. So at that point you are being active and you're being completely on your own. And you're staying on tag. You're being one of the damage dealers that have the most value for the commander. Because everyone who's just waiting for the commander to call something, so you're sitting there, oh, it's so relaxing today. Oh, we are sieging and fighting. The commander didn't call. Let's just sit here and don't use anything until my commander says to me I should use my 1-1-1 on my weapon. Oh, let's just wait. The commander is still not calling. Yeah, that's good. That is basically the opinion of a lot of people, sadly. When I see opponents in front, so if you're going forward and I see enemies in front, I already start casting on them. Completely from alone. You don't need to wait. That's the same if you're sieging a tower. That's the same if you are attacking a keep. It's the same if you just see opponents and you're not stealthed or you do something else. Like, you need to see, there is my opponent and there I want to do my damage. And you don't need big cooldowns. You just, like, for example, if the opponents are being annoying or free casting, just use your dagger 5 and your scepter 2. Or use your F1, F2, F3 to cast on them. Like when they are being on the wall on top there, just put your F1 down or a 1-1-1 on them, or put your scepter 2 down. Most of the time they already go away already, completely. So be active, guys. And when you see an enemy Zerg, or you see an enemy engagement, or you see something that the commander doesn't know, at that point, call it out on voice, or type it in the chat, that the commander gets attention towards that. Okay? So that was my last point towards my Scourge guide today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I gave you some information that people can take and that people can improve. If I forgot something, if you have any questions, if you want to get a Scourge coaching or something, that I look over your mistakes, individual mistakes, that we can talk about it at the end, or maybe I know some tricks that you don't know, hit me up on Discord, hit me up on YouTube, leave me a comment, come towards my stream, come to my Discord and talk to me if you want. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you enjoy the content that I'm trying to create. Even I'm not editing the videos at the moment too much because I don't have the time. And I wish you a great day, guys. Tune in to my next video. It will be a Revenant guide in the next week coming. And stay tuned, guys. Bye bye. So we are done. Perfect. We are done, boys and girls. What? We have a queue on 4 borders? What the actual fuck is going on? Hoye. What? Why do we have a queue on so many borders, guys? So basically my Scourge guide is done, guys. You can already leave some comments here if you want, if I covered everything or if it was helpful for you guys. I'm basically done with it right now and I will load it up later now. I'm also back on Discord now, guys. So, well, that's basically my opinions about everything. At the end, you guys need to know if you like wanna have that or not. And like you have maybe heard it is, Scourge is very reliant